All right, again, good morning and welcome. I'm Erin Francis Cummings, President and CEO of Destination Analyst. Thank you for joining me for our update on how Americans are thinking, feeling, and behaving and traveling in the period of the COVID-19 pandemic from our Coronavirus Travel Sentiment Index study. I hope you were all able to enjoy a wonderful Memorial Day weekend. In between cranking out the report of these latest findings, our team was able to get out and enjoy a little bit of time in nature. For those of you new to Destination Analyst, we are a full-service market research firm that collects and analyzes data and feedback to provide a breadth of insights into your customers, audiences, brand, and marketing performance. We were founded on the principle of do your research, so please let us know if we can assist you in any way in doing yours. We are in the 11th week of this study, and the findings are still as fascinating and illuminating about the American psyche as they were in week 1. But I think I share the same feeling as the rest of you in that I would trade all these interesting findings for this to be over. Nearly 3 months in, we appreciate you for joining us each week for this presentation and discussion. And of course, a giant thank you is owed to those of you who have purchased reports, dashboards, and subscriptions, as well as those of you who have donated to support this research production. We at Destination Analyst are so grateful to you. We welcome your suggestions and requests for question additions. So if anything arises while you are following along today, please let us know by chatting it to us in the Q&A box or sending an email to info@destinationanalyst.com, copy Miha at destinationanalyst.com. We will review every request and let you know personally if and when your suggestion is added to this study. For our subscribers, your online dashboard is updated with the latest data from this week, and your destination-specific filters are ready to go so that you have greater insights into your top audiences. And as I get ready to share this week's findings with you, please put your mind at ease that yes, of course, as always, we'll be subsequently emailing you out the presentation deck as well as a recording of this presentation. You can also find it on our website as well as all the past week's webinar decks and recordings. Today's will be posted by tonight. Today, I'm going to cover the top-line findings from this week's research, as well as the latest Travel Marketing Potential Influence Index. Then we'll take care of answering any questions you have about the research. We'll then hear from our panel of travelers from states amongst the first to reopen to discuss their recent experiences, what they expect for travel, and their ideas for how to motivate them to do so. I'm joined once again by our Managing Director, Dave Bratton, and our Senior Research Director, Miha Gallagher, who are online to help answer any questions you have as they come up. Miha will be jumping on camera at the end of the research presentation to facilitate the discussion with our panel of travelers. We are so privileged to have Zach from Denver, Elizabeth from Nashville, and Lavon from Atlanta with us this morning. Welcome, all of you. We look forward to hearing from you shortly. We encourage you to participate in the discussion today. Again, there'll be 2 opportunities, one at the end of the research update, and then again with our panel. So please use the raise your hand or the Q&A feature. Again, Miha and Dave are also online to answer your questions in the Q&A. All right, let's get into this week's findings. For the sake of time, I have to move through this at a fairly rapid pace, and I'm not able to cover every single topic that we addressed in this ongoing study. But again, you will receive the deck, and please go ahead and ask your questions. As a review, this is the research methodology we employ. Since March 15th, we have surveyed 1,200 travelers from each of the 4 major regions of the U.S. each week. The data is weighted, and the confidence interval is plus or minus 2.8%. What I'll be presenting today is data collected just a few days ago, May 22nd through the 24th. And as a reminder, this research is very unique right now, and that it's independently produced by us and not sponsored, conducted, or influenced by any advertising or marketing agency. It's produced solely to provide you reliable and unbiased information upon which to base your decision. To provide context to this week's findings, when the survey was sealed, again, just a few days ago, Americans were seeing, hearing, and talking about the U.S. death toll nearing 100,000, the shuttering and bankruptcies of more businesses in the travel ecosystem, air travel slowly returning and the measures the airlines are putting in place to keep that momentum going, lack social distancing in places, and its consequences as America celebrated Memorial Day. This is a perfect segue to the most imperative question of the coronavirus period for the travel industry. How safe are customers feeling to travel? Americans continue to demonstrate gradually greater feelings of safety, starting with their perception of the pandemic's course. Concerns that the severity of the pandemic will get worse in the next month fell again this week. Now 37.4% expect the coronavirus situation to get worse in the next month, down from 39.6% last week, and 32.3% expect things to get better, which is up from 28.6% last week. We look at this over time, we see that the week of April 5th marked a low point in Americans' feelings about the trajectory of the pandemic, with a strong majority feeling it would get worse over the next 4 weeks and relatively few feeling it would get better. From then it got steadily better, with the percent feeling it would get worse and the percent feeling it would get better nearly equal the week of May 3rd. We had a widening again the week of May 10th as states began to open up, but now we are getting closer to agreement again. This week brought another improvement in concerns about personally contracting the virus or their friends or family contracting it. If we look back over time, we see concerns for friends and family contracting the virus peaked the week of April 5th. Personal concerns peaked the week of March 29th. Perceptions of the impact the virus will have on personal finances and the national economy are now nearing the levels they were the week of March 15th when we began this study. Concern about the national economy appears to have peaked the week of April 5th, and concern for personal finances peaked also the week of April 5th. Peaked the following week. All right, so ratings of safety of various travel activities improved again this week. This chart is showing you the percent who rated each of the travel activities we are tracking as either somewhat unsafe or very unsafe. Many American travelers continue to feel that crowded activities, particularly ones in which may make it difficult to social distance, such as cruises and sporting events, or ones in which there are greater unknowns like international travel, seeing these as the least safe. Meanwhile, non-team outdoor recreation and road trips are now seen as safe by the majority of American travelers. Looking back over time puts this improvement we saw this week into perspective. Starting with our baseline the week of March 15th, then we had the most dramatic single-week change in perceptions of travel activities as unsafe, then continued but more modest growth, then a stabilization, then a drop the week of April 17th, a notable drop the week of May 3rd, again another drop the week of May 10th, again last week, and now this week back to the levels, or nearly back to the levels of March 15th, except for dining in restaurants, which has not yet returned to the safety perceptions that we saw 11 weeks ago. It's imperative to the industry's recovery that travelers feel they will be safe in every aspect of their journey. And certainly travel industry related businesses are working hard to ensure that that's a reality. But at what point in a trip do travelers perceive the most risk? When do they feel safe or unsafe? To examine where the strongest points of resistance may be or which experiences may need more safety guidelines communicated, we asked travelers to rate what they feel are the top 3 most unsafe components of a common travel experience. At the typical beginning of the journey, traveling on board an airplane is seen as having amongst the highest risk. Public transportation is seen as the highest risk, and over a quarter say traveling in more public but still not entirely modes of transportation like taxis and Ubers is higher risk. Lesser numbers of travelers feel that lodging is among the highest risk components of a trip, but visiting an indoor attraction in the destination was the third rated riskiest trip element, literally 4 times that of visiting outdoor attractions. So clearly Americans see risk when they look at experiences that put them in enclosed indoor spaces with strangers, again, particularly transportation related, where they have lesser control. Although lodging was not commonly chosen as the least safe aspect of a typical trip, it is important to understand the degree to which travelers are feeling they will be safe at Airbnbs and vacation home rentals, which are often perceived to be easier to socially distance, but without the formalized levels of housekeeping and sanitation, and hotels, which are often perceived as being more difficult to avoid other travelers, but with the ability to enact strict sanitation protocols. So let's revisit the safety ratings again. A majority of travelers continue to feel staying in these most popular accommodation types is not yet safe. Staying in a hotel is currently perceived as safe by 27.6% of American travelers, and staying in an Airbnb or vacation home rental as safe by 21.3%. And you see the majority still feeling it's unsafe. Do note, though, that younger travelers are far more trusting of Airbnb and vacation home rental safety compared to older travelers. So in summary, this week saw continued gradual improvements and concerns about the severity of the pandemic's future course and its impact on travelers' health and finances. With the exception of restaurants, safety concerns about travel activities, while still high, have retreated to levels seen at the early stages of the pandemic. The most anxiety-producing aspects of the travel journey are enclosed spaces and are often transportation-related. Outdoor attractions tend to generate lower levels of safety concern, and we urge you to remember that in your creative choices if that's applicable to you. Nevertheless, as we all well know, the coronavirus pandemic has put the travel industry in its greatest modern crisis, one that will take much coordinated work in ensuring traveler safety in order to resolve. Looking at benchmarks from the past compared to current sentiment is important to our learning for how long the journey out from this is going to be. Destination Analyst, the State of the American Traveler Study, begun in 2006, is an online survey of American leisure travelers which tracks travel sentiment quarterly, most recently in January of this year. In this week's Coronavirus Travel Sentiment Index survey, we asked several identical questions to the State of the American Traveler Survey in order to benchmark how travelers feel now compared to just 4 months ago and even further back, in order to better understand the situation the travel industry is in. So just a warning, 2020 was looking to be a great year for travel, and some may find the findings that I'll share with you now gut-wrenching. So starting with expectations for trip volume, the proportion of leisure travelers who report they will decrease the number of trips they will take in the next 12 months compared to the previous 12 months has skyrocketed since January. Now approaching half of American travelers say they will travel less in this coming year. In January, that was only 6.8%. Looking at this historically, prior to this week, the highest recorded percentage of American travelers saying they would be taking less leisure trips in the coming year compared to the previous year was 28.8% in July 2008, as the Great Recession was looming. For context, between December 2007 and June 2009, the Great Recession, 8 million jobs were lost, 4 million homes were foreclosed on, and 2.5 million businesses were shuttered. This issued in a period of turbulence for travel sentiment and intention, followed by a long period of reliable growth. Now, in the midst of the COVID-19 pandemic, with 36 million lost jobs, 42% of which the University of Chicago is estimating may be gone for good. Let's hope that estimate winds up being inaccurate. But we really see the profound shock to travel. Looking at travel spending, the percent of leisure travelers who report that they will decrease their travel spending in this year compared to the past 12 months has also grown sharply. Now 46.6% say they will reduce their travel spending. In January, that figure was just 9.4%. Prior to this week, the highest recorded percentage of American travelers to say they would be spending less on leisure travel in the coming year compared to the previous year was 28.8% during the Great Recession. Now here we are today. All right, looking at travel as a budget priority for Americans, just 27.7% of American travelers say that leisure travel will be at least somewhat of a budget priority in the next 12 months. Back in January, a record 70.6% of American travelers said that leisure travel would be a priority in their budget, and now we're here. Right now, the typical American traveler expects to spend $2,361 on leisure travel in the next 12 months. This is down 40% from January, when planned leisure travel budgets were at $3,882. Now 44.3% of American travelers are saying they will spend $500 or less on leisure travel in the next year. With the anticipated reduction in trips over the next year, we wanted to know which types of destinations may suffer the loss of volume. This chart is showing you the percent of Americans who said they would be taking trips in which they visited each of these types of destinations. The percent planning to take trips to cities fell 25% since January. Small towns remain the same, although not as dramatically. Beaches fell also. And the percent saying they will visit a mountain destination has grown. Desert has remained consistent. Theme parks have fallen slightly, while national and other parks have grown. One silver lining for nature-based destinations like parks, mountains, and deserts, the average number of trips Americans say they plan to take to these types of destinations is actually greater than it was compared to 4 months ago. So clearly Americans want to be outside, but will recent footage like this potentially deter them? Given the results from this benchmarking, we are also left wondering, will the pandemic suck all the fun out of travel? Despite the travel patterns described earlier, when asked to rate how excited they were to visit each of these destination types, excitement levels are much lower than where they were in January. In addition to destinations, the interest in all types of travel experiences is greatly muted at the moment. In January, American travelers were asked about their interests in various travel experiences, and sadly, all travel experiences are of less interest now than just 4 months ago. To measure if there were changes in what drives travel aspiration, we asked, what is the first U.S. destination that comes to mind when thinking about places you would like to visit in the next 12 months? In case you were wondering, shockingly, not a single survey respondent had Tiger King Wild Animal Park at the top of their mind. We were real surprised about that. Survey respondents were asked to then name the, they were asked to name the destination they most wanted to visit in the next year, and then select from a list of reasons which represented why they aspired to visit that particular destination. And just 2 reasons saw increases from 4 months ago: beaches and water sports, and connecting with nature. American travelers are now less likely to say any other reasons were driving their travel aspirations. So in summary, the pandemic has dropped a bomb into American travel aspirations, far exceeding the damage done to sentiment seen during the Great Recession. Travelers expect to spend far less this year on leisure travel and have demoted travel significantly in their budget priorities. In terms of where they're going to go, mountain, deserts, and park-oriented destinations have increased in how they are valued. And sadly, the pandemic appears to be sucking the joy out of travel, with Americans exhibiting depressed levels of excitement and interest. Let's now explore in greater detail the pandemic's impact on travel behavior. The past few days presented us with a great opportunity for a case study Memorial Day is not only a time to remember the sacrifice of those who served, but is traditionally considered the official start of the summer travel season. And this national holiday is the first celebrated during the COVID-19 pandemic. For the first time since it began forecasting this 2 decades ago, AAA declined to put out its annual Memorial Day travel estimate, citing COVID-19's impact on the accuracy of their data, but said that it would be a record low. I was an optimist, thinking we would see an expression of pent-up demand in that theory. And with all 50 states under loosened restrictions, let's see, did Americans in fact travel? As of the morning of May 24th, the Sunday of this Memorial Day weekend, just 5.9% of American travelers reported they were taking a trip this holiday. Of those that went on a trip, 42.7% made the decision to take it within the last week. So while Americans may have been flocking outdoors, it was likely largely not as part of a trip and perhaps more locally. Similarly, a Harris poll conducted about Memorial Day travel plans last week found that 95% of the American population believed that this past weekend it was too soon to travel. Interest levels in taking a getaway in the next month remained unchanged from last week. 4 in 10 travelers said they would be excited to take a weekend getaway with a close friend or relative to a place they want to visit next month. Looking at this over the last 11 weeks, we saw the proportion of travelers who were not open to near future getaways decline from its peak the week of April 3rd, and the percent excited grow from that period, although it's still not at the level it was March 15th. However, levels of interest in learning about new travel experiences and destinations dropped this week. 39% had higher levels of excitement for travel, information, and inspiration, down from 45.2% last week. And while we've seen openness to travel messaging grow from the low points of March and early April, and even reach above the level it was at in mid-March, this week marks a decline in that trend. As our findings over the last several weeks have shown an increased movement of travel to fall months, we wanted to know if American travelers felt the coronavirus situation would be resolved by then. Only a quarter of American travelers would agree that it would be. Perhaps due in some part to this, Americans' optimism for their fall travel declined again this week, and notably, in total, 35.6% expect to be back traveling this fall, down from 41.8% last week. We see that while optimism for fall travel was strong in April, since the beginning of May, that optimism has fallen. The scheduling of leisure trips in the next 3 months has fallen, and this week the increases in travel plans we had been seeing for September through December show signs of reversing. Meanwhile, the percent saying they will not be traveling the remainder of 2020 has grown. Looking at when American travelers estimate their next road trip and air trip will be, as you would imagine, road trips appear to be more of a now thing, and perhaps with the spontaneity allowed will provide more trip volume than anticipated. There's a number of travelers expecting they will take a road trip in the next 2 months. Meanwhile, although passenger loads have been slowly improving, it looks like the majority of American travelers currently still anticipate putting off commercial air travel to 2021 or later. The average distance Americans are estimating their very next road trip to be is 329 miles, although half say it will be less than 250 miles. Now, a growing proportion of Americans agree that staycations will replace vacations this summer. This week, 57.6% of American travelers agree they'll probably take a staycation rather than a vacation this summer, up from 54.1% last week, and the highest that it has been in this study. Also a high of 43.9% of Americans say car travel may displace some of their air travel this year, up from 39.6% last week. And up again for the fifth week straight, and also now at a high, 52.8% say they'll probably take more regional trips while avoiding long-haul trips due to the coronavirus. And hurrying back to international travel appears to currently be a low priority for most American travelers. Relatively few expect their next international trip to take place in the coming months. Yet, unchanged from last week, the number of Americans who say they are done traveling until the coronavirus situation blows over in their mind is in a decline over the last month. Also unchanged, the percent who agree they will not travel until a vaccine is developed, opinions staying virtually the same over the last 3 weeks. So in summary, what we think this data is relaying is that most travelers seem to have accepted that the coronavirus is going to be part of our travel lives for the remainder of the year. Thus, the pandemic impacts on travel continue unabated, with many now putting off travel further. Road trips and staycations are becoming more likely this summer. While travelers anticipate their next road trip in the near months, there appears to still be largely a waiting out on commercial air travel, and hurrying back to international travel remains a low priority for most Americans. Looking at their local world, the proportion of American travelers who are comfortable with their home state reopening remains unchanged from last week. Now 40.3% say they're comfortable with their home state reopening its economy. 32.6% are not yet comfortable. Americans that continue to incrementally get more comfortable about going out in their own communities to enjoy themselves. Now 32.8% say they're comfortable with undertaking local activities, statistically unchanged from last week. American travelers still largely do not want other travelers visiting their communities yet. Similar to last week, 60.7% agree with that sentiment. So in summary, the proportion of American travelers who are comfortable with their home state reopening is largely unchanged from last week. Comfort going out locally continues to gradually improve. A stable 6 in 10 still don't want visitors in their communities right now. As we look ahead to how the travel industry will recover, and it will, younger travelers will very likely be key for many destinations and travel providers. And here's why. They feel less personal concerns about contracting the virus and its impact on their finances. They're less fearful of flying, international travel, public transit, and other travel activities. They can be motivated by travel discounts. Nearly 40% reports that they will make travel at least somewhat of a priority in their budget, double the number of baby boomers who say the same. They plan to spend $3,000 on leisure travel in the next year, $1,000 more than baby boomers. And they plan to visit a more diverse set of destinations in the next year. They aren't so afraid of cities. All right, and to wrap the research portion up, let's take a look at the latest from our travel marketing potential influence calculation. This is the index we have built on these 4 data points to track travel readiness in this exceptional environment. As a reminder, this is what travel readiness would look like in a pre-COVID pandemic time. Here's what it looks like now. We are again seeing slightly more movement over on the right-hand side. And we track a number of travel segments, so I'll take you through a few now. Looking by gender, women continue to report higher levels of safety and financial concerns than men, though concerns from both groups show slight drops. A third of women this week said they have no plans to travel in 2020, up a little bit, while only a quarter of men say the same. Looking by generation, this week Gen X showed a slight drop in safety concerns and the most optimism that the severity of the coronavirus situation would in fact improve. By region, safety concerns in the West grew again this week, while similar concerns dropped in the South. Financial concerns grew in the West and Midwest and dropped in the Northeast and South. The South reported their biggest drop this week in openness to travel messaging, but even still remains more open than the Midwest and the Northeast. By residence type, urban residents returned to being the most concerned for their personal safety and the impact the virus will have on their financial well-being. But even with these high concerns, urban residents reported being the most excited to travel and are tied with those that live in rural areas for being the most open to travel messaging. By the type of destination traveler they were in the before time, travelers who love national parks reported the lowest comparative levels of safety concerns. National park travelers also show the most optimism this week that the coronavirus situation will improve. Beach travelers followed by national park travelers report being likely to travel the furthest on their next road trip. All right, so next, an ongoing update. We release these findings every Monday morning at 8 a.m. Eastern via email and on our website. The complete report is sent by Tuesday, and you can always join us here at 11 a.m. Eastern on Tuesday for this presentation of the latest findings. And please follow us on social for other analyses that we put out. We are available should you need to provide a 15-minute or however length of time presentation that you need for your board and stakeholders. Please just go ahead and reach out to us if you need that. And we have a number of resources to assist and support you with tourism advocacy and recovery, from the economic impact of marketing assets to the benchmarks from pre-pandemic times, and research services to illuminate and support your ongoing strategy. We will have our meeting planner sentiment results to you as soon as possible. Our early insights from our DMO importance study coming up. More online focus groups with travelers in addition to today, and also more traveler segment profiles on our website. All right, any questions on the research findings while we get our panel set up? Just a reminder on how to participate. You can use the raise your hand or the Q&A feature. So while you're getting your questions in there, it's my great pleasure to formally welcome our Senior Director of Research, Neha Gallagher, who will be coming on video in a second. In addition to being a full-time doggy mother of one, Neha spent nearly a decade studying travelers and creating insights for destination analysts, many clients. So Neha, I'll let you take over here. I don't see questions yet on the research, but I will go ahead and handle those in the chat. And Neha, I'll let you welcome the panel.
All right, well, thank you so much, Erin. So with the U.S. slowly emerging from what felt like an eon of sheltering in place, we wanted to speak to travelers from some of the states that first lifted shelter-in-place orders to understand their current travel outlook for 2020. So let's welcome our wonderful panelists to join the conversation. First, let me introduce Zach from Denver, Colorado. What he enjoys most about traveling is exploring new places, having new experiences, and trying new foods. He currently has 3 tentative trips planned for the rest of the year, with the next most likely trip being a camping trip to the Great Sand Dunes National Park in his home state. And while sheltering in place, what he's missed most is being able to hang out with friends. Next, please welcome Elizabeth from Nashville, Tennessee. When traveling, Elizabeth likes to engage in a variety of experiences, including visiting national parks, exploring major cities, and immersing herself in different cultures and festivals. She has a total of 7 trips planned for 2020, with her next most likely being a 2-week-long road trip throughout Texas. While sheltering in place, Elizabeth has missed having all of her social engagements, including taking trips, going to live performances, and visiting friends and family. Last but not least, please help me in welcoming Lavon from Atlanta, Georgia. When traveling, Lavon most enjoys visiting international destinations, going to museums, and visiting major landmarks. She currently has no leisure trips planned for the rest of the year, but will take an overnight trip to drop her son off at college. Her next leisure trip in 2021 will be to Spain and Italy. And while sheltering in place, Lavon has missed purely interacting with people, traveling, and dining out. Thank you all for joining us today. Let me just see, welcome everyone. Lavon and Zach, please feel free to share your webcams and unmute yourselves. So I hope all 3 of you had a lovely holiday weekend, and I'd like to hear what you all did over Memorial Day. Did anyone travel? Let's start with you, Elizabeth.
No, I didn't travel. In fact, usually I hang out with friends or family, and really we just stayed home. I weeded the garden. I took my son to play in a sandbox, and we made burgers, but we really didn't do the normal, what we would do on Memorial Day.
Sure. How about you, Zach?
No, we didn't. I didn't travel. I actually just bought a house, so spent a lot of this weekend moving in.
Oh, well, that's exciting. And Levon, I know you mentioned you don't have any trips planned for 2020, so I'm guessing you didn't travel this weekend either. Can I ask, though, why you've scrapped your travel plans for the rest of the year?
Well, I don't plan on traveling until I feel comfortable traveling, but I do have to take my son back to college, and so we usually make that a little mini trip. So that's still up in the air whether colleges will open. So that will be one of the trips. But this weekend we stay close to home as well, just working around the house.
Got it. All right. Well, with all 50 states now reopened, at least to some degree, I'd like to know how you all feel about visitors coming to your community now. Let's start with you, Levon. How do you feel about travelers and tourists coming to Atlanta?
Um, I'm I'm not comfortable with it. I still think we need to stay apart. We need to wait for the vaccine at least. We don't know what those people are bringing. We don't even know what our own people have in our community. So we don't know what others are bringing in. And when others come in, it just causes our people to feel like it's okay to socialize instead of staying separated. So I'm just not comfortable with it right now.
Sure. Have you seen travelers in and around Atlanta recently?
I've went downtown Atlanta a couple times to do some shopping, and it still seems a little dead. But according to some pictures, you can see people starting to congregate. They're going out to restaurants. So I'm not sure if they're out of towners or not. But I heard that our beaches are starting to get more populated.
I see. And have you heard anything about these travelers and how they've behaved in Atlanta? Have they been using hygienic practices, wearing masks?
Again, I'm not sure, but as I venture out, it seems like it's 50-50. Some people are wearing masks, some people aren't. Most people aren't wearing gloves. I went to the outlet yesterday, and we did have to wait 6 feet before we can get into the store, and they didn't limit the number of people. So I can see it some places, but other places you can just see everybody just goes into the store. Again, they may or may not have on masks. So some people are doing what they're supposed to, and others aren't.
Right. How about you, Elizabeth? How do you feel about travelers coming to Nashville?
I'm a little torn about it. I think I'm actually okay with it. And I think what it kind of comes down to is your belief about what the end goal is, how you get there and when you get there. I agree with Levon. I would love to have that vaccine right now. I just don't see it happening really anytime soon. I mean, I'm thinking still a year out, and I just can't imagine staying closed. There's so many people hurting right now, not just because of the vaccine, but everything else. And I think the other reason I kind of feel that way is in my community yesterday for Memorial Day, I saw all sorts of people having parties with people who certainly don't live in our neighborhood. And at first when I saw it, it was almost a shock to see people hanging out together, certainly not wearing masks, certainly not practicing social distancing. And to Levon, right? Is that your name?
Mm-hmm. Correct.
To Levon's point, it did almost make me feel more comfortable seeing that because it's almost like the solidarity of people kind of accepting it. And I think it goes back to risk perceptions also with myself. We're in that category that's less likely to be impacted by this. And so I felt like if I wanted to socially distance, I had the choice to not participate. But if I wanted to participate, I'd like to have that opportunity. So I think I'm okay with it.
Okay. All right. And Zach, how about you? How do you feel about tourists and travelers coming to Denver right now?
Not amazing. Denver is like a pretty big city, so we're able to support a lot of people. But travelers, if you're traveling now, you probably have a more cavalier attitude than most, and you're more just in my view, you're more likely to eschew masks or not social distance, or you're going to be drinking and not thinking about these things. Also, Denver, the majority of the summertime travel destinations are up in the mountains where you're doing outdoor activities. And those are pretty small communities with small community hospitals and medical facilities that tend to get very overloaded. And in this state, that's where we originally saw the first spike of COVID patients were in those mountain communities. And it would just be super problematic and disappointing to see that happen again, because people are excited to come and visit our mountains and our hiking trails.
Sure. So the coronavirus has undoubtedly warped the way people will travel. I'd love to hear your opinions on how you think it may or may not affect how people approach staycations. So Elizabeth, would you like to get us started?
I think it's an interesting concept because I think if I'm worried to travel, whether that's driving somewhere distant or a staycation, I don't think a staycation makes me feel safer because I'm next to home. It almost seems more cavalier to do a staycation because it's almost flaunting. I'm ready to get into a hotel and restaurants and attractions, but I'm not willing to travel for it because somehow it's safer because it's closer to home. And I don't think that's true. I think if I'm willing to travel, I'm either willing to travel or not. And I don't think a staycation changes that perception. I think it's really kind of uniform. Either it's a yes or a no. And I think that's really kind of my perception of the staycation.
I see. Okay. How about you, Levon?
Okay, so repeat the question again.
So I was just mentioning how the coronavirus has appended how we look at travel and approach travel. And I wanted to know if you felt like you may approach taking a staycation differently in this current environment.
I guess I agree with Elizabeth. I mean, I see staycation and going away kind of like the same. You still have to practice social distancing, and you still have to make sure that your surroundings, the building, the hotel, or wherever you're staying is sanitized and clean. So I think you get a little bit more relaxed if you are doing a staycation, whereas if you were in a hotel or Airbnb, I would definitely try to clean more and bring my own aerosols and things like that, just to make sure that it's clean. So it's kind of like a false sense of security when you stay home or when you stay near for some reason, as opposed to when you go out because you're really expecting a higher level of cleanliness.
Okay. And Zach?
Yeah, I agree with Levon and Elizabeth. If we're assuming that staycation means like renting a hotel in my town and staying in, it's one and the same. It doesn't matter how far I'm going. Yeah, I'm not adding in flights as an additional risk, but there's still so much unknowns that doesn't make me feel super comfortable. If we're defining staycation as just taking time off work and making staying at home enjoyable, that's definitely more likely in the next few months for myself. Just my wife and I kind of figuring out something to do while not exposing ourselves to unnecessary risk.
Mm-hmm. Okay, well, on the topic of staycations, I know last week I talked to the three of you and we asked you to put together an advertisement concept that actually could inspire you and get you and other travelers like you over the hump to take a trip somewhere within your region and stay at least one night in a hotel. So let's talk about what you've put together. So if we could get our deck back online, Erin, and we'll take a look at Elizabeth's ad concept first.
Do you see it?
No, not yet. Great. So Elizabeth, this is the staycation ad concept that you've created, and it looks like you have a variety of images. Can you talk me through what you've chose and why you've chosen to include here?
So for me, I love travel. I want to travel. I canceled 4 trips already because of coronavirus. We had so many different plans for this year that have canceled, and I don't know if we're going to be able to. The next trip is a 2-week trip for Texas, and Texas is kind of unsure right now. So I do miss that travel. And when I think about travel, I don't want to see all the safety precautions being taken. Like, I want those things to exist, but I don't want that to be in an advertisement. I get so tired if I'm watching YouTube and we get the constant, you know, this is uncertain times. Like I don't want to, like, I want to be taken away in the marketing away from even COVID-19, which I almost feel like I need a vacation from COVID-19. So I want the dialogue to happen to almost have this storyline of how I can escape that without, you know, can you make me feel like I'm safer in my own city? I don't know. I already said that I feel like it's very similar, but can you make it seem like I'm still being able to travel if I were to do something close to home? And so I really wanted to kind of paint a picture. It's almost like a storyboard in one advertisement, where it was like the arrival and you see the city that I live in. Here's Nashville. Here's the city skyline at kind of after you're done work and you get there. And then for me, a really big important thing is I don't like to travel without my son or without my family. I find family travel very important. My husband and I don't take romantic getaways without him. We don't feel like we need that. So I really want to see my son enjoying the time, but I also want to know that I can relax. And so I really don't know when spas are coming back. I don't even know if that's like in the repertoire of things people are talking about, but just knowing that, again, the outdoor activities are really important. We saw those numbers coming up. I definitely want to be outdoors. I feel like I can socially distance more, but can you show me that from my city? I don't know. I don't know what that looks like. But then also I need an image of being welcomed back into the hotel. Maybe that includes a face mask, maybe it doesn't. I don't really know. But really the dialogue and the language is about exploring and traveling the things I love to do, but not necessarily traveling on an airplane to get there. And so that's kind of the storyline for the advertisement I came up with.
Got it. And just to follow up, why does the message about exploration and escape inspire you to take a trip and stay in a hotel specifically?
I'm always working. I actually work from home normally. So there hasn't been a lot of change to my work life. In fact, I feel like I work more now because everyone expects you to be home. So I wake up in the morning 7 days a week and I'm at my computer doing more work. So the idea of just getting away, like a staycation for me would never be being home because my home is also my office. So I need to get away from home. I need to be able to know that I'm doing something more, that when I spend my money, I'm not just sleeping somewhere, which a hotel can just be a place to sleep. I need it to be more than that. And I need to escape from the rigor of getting up every day and getting the computer and getting to work. And so those words are really enticing to me: exploration and escape.
Got it. Thank you. Well, let's take a look at what Lavon put together. And Lavon, talk to me about this stunning hand-drawn hotel ad you created.
Well, this is, every time I see the advertisement for couples, it just looks wonderful. So that's what I had in my mind, a nice room to stay in, but, the beach is right outside your room. It's nice and comfortable. You can relax, you can get your drinks. You can do water sports if you want to. You can walk along the beach. As Elizabeth said, I don't want to see anything to do with safety and masks, but I do want to know, I want to be reassured that it will be safe for me to come there and to walk around and to shop and, to take advantage of what the island or wherever this location is has to offer. So I'm just looking for, because I'm ready to go. I mean, we almost pulled the trigger on our trip, and we actually pulled the trigger for my son going to China and Spain, but I'm just looking for relaxation, fun, everything that encompasses a vacation, especially now, without any of the implications or anything to remind me of the coronavirus. Even though it's there, I don't want that to be in the advertisement. I want the advertisement to draw me in and put me on the beach.
I see. And just a quick follow-up question, Lavon. I know both you and Elizabeth said you don't want to see anything specific to health safety protocols in the ads, but you still want that message to come through. How can a destination or a hotel ad achieve that?
I mean, they could maybe, if it's a TV ad or something like that, they can maybe say, you don't have to worry about the cleanliness, a short little something just reassuring you that they're top-notch clean rooms and their safety put in, you know, and then leave it like that, and then focus more on the room and what they have to offer. But definitely you can state it in the ad or in the advertisement somewhere, just for reassurance, because that's going to be in everyone's mind, especially behind, you know, in the back of everybody's mind. But I don't want to constantly see it. Like, I don't want to see the waiter with the mask on, or I don't want to see the people cleaning the rooms with the gloves. You know, I don't want to see it, but I do want you to reassure me that it's going to be top-notch clean.
Got it. All right, well, let's take a look at Zach's ad. And Zach, talk to me about your equally as stunning hand-drawn hotel ad. Can you describe the setting to me and why you chose this specifically?
Sure. Just getting my drawing blown out of the water by Levon and Elizabeth here, but essentially in the same kind of thing. In case you can't tell what's going on, this is hiking away from a hotel into the mountains. Kind of going back what your research showed, just in my mind, the things that are, you know, safest or most things I would enjoy doing the most is being outside of a confined space, even if it is, you know, in a new destination. And being in a hotel, like the cleanliness, all of those things, like the safety, even before coronavirus, the thing that was always assumed is that your hotel is going to be incredibly cleanly, and that's kind of implicit in any kind of advertisement. Nothing could be worse than a non-clean room. So just not those things don't need to be sold. I think nothing feels more disingenuous than those ads today about from corporations telling us how concerned they are about our safety and everything like that. So more selling the idea of something enjoyable, something that you could do to break up the monotony of, you know, shelter in place or anything like that, while also implicitly, you know, making you feel like it's a safe alternative to staying indoors.
Got it. And I see you've only included 2 people in the entire ad. Can I ask why that is?
Literally no reason. I wouldn't look too hard into that. It was more of just my artistic skills. I didn't want to go too deep into too much detail.
All right. Okay, so just to wrap up our conversation on this topic, guys, I'd like to know if there is any other important information that should be included in these types of ads to get you to more seriously consider a hotel stay on your next trip. So Levon, let's start with you. Any other important information that you feel should be communicated in these ads?
I think if they can, if they just state that, you know, they're top-notch clean, you know, just if I feel that they're doing enough to keep me safe, I think that will be all that is required. But it's more than just the hotel, as your research showed. It's the airplane flight, it's the walking through the airport, things of that nature that I'm more concerned of than the hotel. I mean, I would feel somewhat comfortable in a hotel because I know they can keep it clean and they can monitor it. But you know, once they state it, then it's just up to you whether you want to take that risk or not.
Okay, Elizabeth, anything to add?
I think there's going to be a little bit of a war moving forward. I think over the next year, and it's going to take a while to recover that. And the war is going to be between, if I'm not getting the same experience that I expect, are you giving me a discount? And the providers saying, we can't really afford to give discounts at this point because we need to get back and we want to maintain that brand integrity of what we're offering. So I think a big thing for me to combat that would be to really say, showing me and making me feel comfortable that I'm still going to get a great experience and that things are open. I feel like a lot of times I'm worried that if I get there and they're going to be like, oh, well, sorry, we're closed. There are too many people. We've already hit capacity. So yeah, you spent all this money, you're staying in the hotel, but you can't actually experience anything you want and we're not going to give you a discount. So if you're not going to give me that discount or that guarantee, what are you going to do to show me that it's worth investing my time energy and money, that I'm going to still get a great experience. And I don't know if I trust that yet.
Got it. And Zach, any last things you want to add here?
Yeah, I mean, while advertising, I understand that it's trying to sell that type of experience. For me, at least, the impetus to go and travel and to stay in hotels isn't going to come from, the people, the industry itself. It's going to be coming from health experts before anything happens. So it's more of, there's pent up demand, but I'm not ready yet to really do anything about it. But yeah, like that's really just about it. I understand the economics of it, and it's truly not a great situation, but I don't know. It's just not worth the risk. The risk reward just doesn't make sense to me at this point.
Thank you guys for sharing. All right.
Yes, thank you. It's a tall order, it looks like, for travel marketers and creatives right now. Thank you all, our panel here, for the look into your minds as travelers, and for helping us understand how you are feeling, your considerations and concerns about the places you may choose to visit and what can motivate you. And thank you all, everyone online, for attending. Please go ahead and send us any questions that you may have for this research, and we'll see you this coming Tuesday for a presentation of next week's findings. Have a great rest of your week, and take care, everyone. See you again next week.